time for the throw punch! Yes, Taco Tuesday. I got Admin V and Admin E low in the same live stream, and a guest that I have long sought to have on our live stream for no other reason other than he is cool. And that is our guest, Julian from South Dakota, a business owner and former state trooper or still?
Yeah, former state trooper and South Dakota state nominee for U.S. Marshal.
I'll add that on there. What haven't you done? So I'm going to let our guest introduce himself because, as I like to say, who knows better than they do?
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. So again, small business owner, my wife and I own a restaurant called Swamp Daddy's Cajun Kitchen in Sioux Falls. And since it's Black History Month, it will be irresponsible of me not to say this, but my wife is certainly the driving force behind that restaurant, and she has the largest Black-owned restaurant in the state of South Dakota. So for Black History Month, kudos to her and the work that she's doing and her staff. Again, Julian Beaudoin is my name, 13 and a half years as a state trooper, and then was the state nominee for U.S. Marshal for the Dakota Territory. So that's just the South Dakota portion of the country. And then did some work in the nonprofit sector. I served as the executive director for the South Dakota African American History Museum for a period of time, as well as our president for Juneteenth Sioux Falls. And because of that work that I've done in the community and creating bridges or filling gaps between the community and law enforcement, last year I was very, very proud to be recognized by former President Obama as one of the 100 most influential leaders across the country, and became a presidential leader, went through the presidential leadership program, learned directly from him and some of the chiefs of staff with the Obama leadership program there. So that's just a little bit about me. I'm sure we'll get to know me better as we move on.
I read that your dad was a math teacher, which is something we have in common. Yes. I saw that on your website, and I was like, ha. So you were from Louisiana originally.
That's correct.
What brought you to South Dakota?
So, yeah, I mean, my dad was a math teacher for a while. Everybody expects me to be great at math, not so much. But my mom is a retired nurse with the VA. And when she retired, she actually took a retirement job in Sioux Falls. I was playing ball up at Louisiana Tech in college, and ended up tearing my knee up, my ACL, MCL, just kind of destroyed it all. And back then, if you remember way back, this was like 2005, 2006, you had to be in network in order to have some care done for your insurance coverage. And so because I was out of my insurance coverage network, I had to come up to Sioux Falls to have that surgery because that's where my mother was, and insurance as well. So came up here in 06 and man, fell in love with the place. And I like to say I tricked my girlfriend at the time to come up to Sioux Falls when it was summertime. It was warm. It was beautiful.
I see where this is going.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. And so now we've been here 20 years, going on 21 years now.
That's great.
That's
I just want to insert
now,
all my.
right?
Go ahead, sorry.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
It's home now, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, this is what I tell folks. Louisiana is always home. Louisiana is just always home. However, I choose to live here, and so this is home number 2. I don't choose to live anywhere else in this country but Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
That is awesome. I was just going to insert that most of my family lives in South Dakota, although some, I have cousins in Sioux Falls, so I'll definitely be checking in with them. But most of my family is what you call West River.
Yeah. And there's a difference. For folks who don't know, there's a big difference between East River and West River.
East River and West River. Yeah, my parents lived in East River for a while. My dad, they went to Vermilion. They went to university.
Yep,
so I'm really excited that you're here because when I saw that you were a candidate, I was so excited about there being a great Democratic candidate in South Dakota, because there's been Democrats elected to statewide office in South Dakota historically. It's only been in the recent years of crazy time that things are not that way. But Tom Daschle was the senator for a really long time, and a lot of statewide officers were Democrats. So I'm so excited about your candidacy.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, because a lot of folks think that this is an uphill battle type of moment for us because it's a red state, when really the reality is this was a blue state for quite a while federally. And so I consider us to be much more of a purple state. If you look at the voter registration numbers, we're probably, maybe just a little bit less than a third each way when you talk about Democrats, Republicans, and independents. And so we really have an opportunity to flip the seat.
People like to believe that they're independent there too. If you speak to them with common sense, I know they like to think they are, but I think right now is a good time because there is a lot of dissent going on. There are finally some voices that are speaking out against some of what's going on. At least there's going to be your knee-jerk people that are just not going to listen to it, but there are people that are starting to speak out. So there may be an ear for it right now.
Yeah, let's hope so, right? I'm working.
Yeah, let's hope so.
I'm working for it. That's for sure.
Can only imagine. All you can do is be you.
What drove you to run? I'm sorry. I was going to ask, what drove you to run for Senate? Tell us about.
Yeah, I'm interested too. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean it's a long story. Good thing we got a little bit of time. So when I was a state trooper, one of the first positions that I was fortunate enough to hold was a position within the Capitol Protective Services. And so I was stationed in Pierre originally for about 3.5 years. And part of that work that I did also required me to do some dignitary protection. I didn't do a lot of dignitary protection, but I certainly had my fair share. And so I was responsible for folks like the governor and lieutenant governor, chief justice, and their families. And so being in some of those rooms, it allowed me to see the impact of policy from a different perspective and how those folks were creating policy. And most of the time, majority of the time, that policy never benefited my community. So I actually started chatting with the lieutenant governor at the time, Matt Michaels, a Republican. I consider him to be an incredible individual, a friend of mine, and a mentor of mine, and just really trying to figure out how to be impactful in the position that I was in moving forward. Fast forward a little bit to 2020, I ran for city council. We all know what 2020 meant to this country when you talk about COVID and folks running for office. It was just a different type of election, different type of atmosphere. But one thing that I take full advantage of from me learning in 2020 was the missing piece of relationship in the state of South Dakota, and how we couldn't really door knock, we couldn't really be in front of people. And folks are urging for the opportunity right now just to have that personal connection with a candidate, or even with the leader in the community. It doesn't necessarily have to be a political candidate. So I started doing some work, as I kind of explained before, within the nonprofit sector while I was still a state trooper. And one thing kind kind of led to another. I got into a relationship with former U.S. Attorney Randy Seiler, who's passed away now. And Randy encouraged me to join a program called CEI, which is the Community Engagement Initiative. And I was the state representative for that Community Engagement Initiative. The work was to bridge relationships between community and law enforcement after the murder of George Floyd. And so I represented South Dakota and the South Dakota Highway Patrol in that Community Engagement Initiative movement, if you will. Building relationships through that process. Randy Seiler actually then became the chair of the South Dakota Democratic Party. And I continued to work with him. That's how I was able to gain the nominee for U.S. Marshal. And then being in those positions helped me to see, again, a different aspect of policymaking. So not just from the state side, not just from, the city side with city council, but then I started to see how federally things could impact you right here at home every single day. And I had always been that type of person where, I'm like, listen, local politics only. That's all I want to hear about is local politics. And my eyes were open. I would just say that. And then I became a delegate for Kamala Harris. I actually was the delegate captain for the state of South Dakota, the Democratic Party for Kamala Harris. And that actually allowed me to step into all the things that have been building up to now access to people. And when you have access to people, access to power, access to legislation, you can really start to create some change. I utilize that as leverage to create change for nonprofits in the city of Sioux Falls, really the southeastern part of the state. When you talk about fighting against legislation in Pierre. And then I got to a point, this is now where I'm going to answer your question directly, a long story. But then I got to a point to where I really got tired of fighting against something. And I just wanted to fight for people. And the way that I chose to do that was to be more engaged and involved in politics. My wife and I sat down and we thought about what role would actually be beneficial to the community, but also what role would really play well within our family dynamics. We came up on the role of United States Senate against Mike Rounds. He was, of course, fighting against some things and things that don't benefit our farmers, don't benefit our communities, definitely don't benefit our education system. And I saw, me having the strength to really fight for people in those things that Mike Rounds is not fighting for. And so that's how I landed on U.S. Senate. It wasn't anything where I just had my eyes set on this particular role. It has always been, how can I best serve the community?
Yeah. Has the Trump tariffs impacted the South Dakota farmers a lot? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes and no. Yes and no. It has impacted the cost the cost of farming here and the cost of production here in South Dakota. However, let's look at our neighbors right in Nebraska, where they had about 40% of their farms last year go bankrupt. So that the tariffs impacted those farmers in Nebraska much differently than it has impacted the farmers in South Dakota. However, we actually had a town hall about 2-3 weeks ago in Britton, South Dakota. Listen, this is the craziest stat that I love to tell people about this town hall. Britton is less than 1,000 people, and I had 45 farmers show up to that town hall. That was simply incredible for a small community of typically conservative farmers, conservative folks in agriculture. And so what I was able to learn is that right now there's a projected 40% of South Dakota farms and ranches, family farms and ranches. Let me be very specific when I say that, because there's corporate farms, of course, all over our country, but this is impacting family farms and ranches across the state. And we're talking about now 40% of those individuals not being able to get loans from credit unions and banks anymore because the Trump administration not only put the tariffs in, but remove our CDFI programming, which gives them direct community impact and development dollars. And so their cost is higher. Now they can't get loans, and we are on pace to match or even outpace Nebraska with the amount of family farms that go bankrupt this year here in South Dakota.
That's crazy work, I grew up in a farming community, so that's something I'm always interested in. You talked earlier about like healthcare being something, your mom being a nurse and you having to come to South Dakota to get knee surgery. Do you want to talk about how you feel about healthcare as a whole?
Yeah, healthcare for me is certainly a human right, and so I'm for Medicaid for all. I would like to see a single payer healthcare system. What that means from the perspective of policy, though, and I think this is something that I didn't realize until I hopped into this race and really understanding how to develop policy on a federal level. Folks have to also understand as voters that this is not something that can happen overnight. It's a building process, which is why the dismantling, so to speak, of what folks call Obamacare or the ACA has been so impactful. And in addition to that, this big disastrous bill that was passed that gives less money to rural development and rural hospitals. Just maybe to spin off on that, South Dakota has seen every single one of his OBGYN clinics in rural areas closed down. So we have no access any longer for women in rural areas. And that's a direct impact from the big disastrous bill. I will not call it a beautiful bill. So what we're seeing is the dismantling of something that was building up to more of a single payer healthcare system, and we're moving backwards. So the important thing that I want folks to understand is that we have some catching up to do to get to that. It seems like it's a pie in the sky type idea because, like your Bernie Sanders might fight for things like this. However, polling tells us that the majority of Americans, close to 70% of Americans, believe that healthcare should be something that all humans access, no matter if you're a citizen or not. And so we have to work towards what the majority of this country wants.
I agree completely. Again, that's something I always ask the candidates about when I'm on these streams. So let's see, what else can we talk about? How about environmental stuff?
I got one.
Around South Dakota. Like what's going on up there environmentally? I know that North Dakota has a lot of oil and fracking and things like that, or
yeah, fracking's not so much of a big deal in South Dakota. There is a portion of northern South Dakota, particularly on our reservations, that actually one of our reservations is split between North and South Dakota. And so there's oil up there, and you talk about the pipeline development there. However, the big push
Standing Rock.
Yeah, Standing Rock is that reservation. Yep. The big push here right now, or a big conversation, I should say, is data centers. We have tons of land and tons of opportunity. I probably will be on the opposite side of many Democrats when it comes to the development of data centers. I think that data centers are necessary, number one, necessary for the growth and development of technology. I also think that it's just something that's going to be inevitable. And so how do we work with our farmers, and how do we work with our indigenous communities to make sure that they are at the forefront of that conversation and sitting at the table to make sure that they are making the decisions versus the politicians making the decisions. Right. They're the ones taking care of our land. They're the ones providing our energy sources. They're the ones creating our food. And if we want to live more freely amongst these data centers or amongst the development of the data centers, we have to make sure that they're part of that conversation and making the decisions.
Right. Not to ignore it because they don't want it or shut it down without debating it, but actually to walk in and set the parameters. I mean, I think you're right in the sense that I think it's probably inevitable.
Yeah.
It's worth pointing out that data centers can actually operate on wastewater. They don't have to use clean fresh water. So if you can get them to acknowledge that, which it costs more money for them to have to clean the water instead of just using everybody's free clean water. But if you can get them to acknowledge that and work that in, right? Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And if they pay their own bills instead of having everybody else the cost of foisting it on the taxpayers, like, well, I don't care about your Google AI bullshit. I don't. But if you're gonna put this thing here, you pay your bill, not me. I don't want to pay an extra. My electricity bill is through the roof right now, and there's no data center here. But we're getting increased costs because of all the government run things like, oh, yeah, we'll let you do this here, and we'll just give it to the taxpayers. no, I don't want that.
Yeah. Can I add something to that? Just a little touch.
Absolutely.
So the part of the conversation around data centers in the state legislature is that the companies that want to, build these large processing centers, they want to do so tax-free. And you just talked about, energy costs going up. You talked about the water usage as well, what type of water is going to be used. One thing that no one is talking about is how do we include a water tax, provide some water taxation on folks? Because even if it is wastewater, or non-consumable water, I guess is really how it's referred to.
Potable.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Potable.
Potable. Yes.
Non-potable water.
Right. So, but that water is still used for other things. It might not be for human consumption, but that water can still be used for other things, such as cooling off energy plants. Right. And that's exactly what the data center is going to use it for as well, is to cool off their energy sources. And so we either are going to charge them in property tax, which they're asking to be removed from, or we're going to charge them in more of, I don't know, I think there's like this talk right now about what a different type of technology tax looks like. I don't know if that's going to move anywhere just because of how fast technology moves right now. But one thing that we also need to look at is resource tax. We pay taxes on the water that we drink. So why not have this data center pay taxes on the water that they're using as well?
And
yeah,
we talk a lot about jobs and things around this, but a lot of these data centers don't bring a lot of jobs to the community. How can we talk to technology companies to bring more high-paying jobs to the rural areas where they put these data centers?
Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers to answer that question directly, and I'm just going to be upfront and honest with you. I do know that the majority of the jobs that will be coming in are considered temporary jobs. Now, temporary for them looks like 3 to 5 years because that's how long it's going to take to build some of these things and move in and out. And so you will have an influx of folks coming into, some of these smaller communities or maybe even some rural communities to build these data centers. And then you're going to have a big sharp decrease in people leaving to go to the next data center, because that's just the way it works. The same thing in the oil fields. When you see the influx and then you see a sharp decrease, we're going to see that again. However, what I have heard, and I have not talked to the professionals or folks who are more experienced than I am, but what I have heard is that these data centers are going to require at least a minimum of 80 to 100 folks to staff them. So we will see an increase, and 80 to 100 new jobs in a rural community. That is huge. That's a huge impact to their entire economy. So again, I'm not the expert on that, and I have not talked to them yet. But that is the things that I'm hearing from the state legislature.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
And this might feel slightly personal. So in the interest of full disclosure, I'm going to say that I also am a former law enforcement officer. It's a sheriff's deputy, not anything as high tech or cool as state troopers, but I'll be at the courthouse escorting people in and out of it.
The inside joke is not everybody can be great, but I appreciate your service.
So with that in mind, the traditional standpoint of people on the left is, with regards to law enforcement, is they have some very negative things to say, even though typically when it comes down to it, like, for example, January 6th insurrection, the left was suddenly like, oh, the cops, yeah, we're on their side. But typically they're like, all cops are bastards, kind of, fuck the police kind of thing. What would you say to people who are going to throw that out at you when you introduce yourself and give your background to them, and their immediate reflexive reaction is to throw that at you because you mentioned your state trooper background?
Yeah, one of the things that I've been fighting for in this campaign is to make sure we're not talking about left versus right, Democrats versus Republicans. We're just talking about South Dakotans and the needs of our state, the people in our state. And South Dakotans, for the most part, have never been, whether it's Democrat or Republican, have never been abolished to police. That's not us. We understand the value of police. We understand the importance of public safety. And quite honestly, I've been part of the executive committee of the state Democratic Party for years now, and also participating in subcommittees probably the last 10 to 12 years. And one of the primary focuses of our party, one of the pillars of our party, has always been public safety and how we can build bridges between community and law enforcement. Now, here's what I will tell folks on the right who throw things in your face about, hey, the left has always been anti-law enforcement, is that, listen, we are not anti-law enforcement, but we are certainly pro-accountability. And law enforcement is not above or beyond being held accountable. I was certainly held accountable when I made errors in uniform, and I would anticipate that everyone else who wears that uniform is held to the same exact standard.
So I would like to dig into that because I, for reference, I am also a former law enforcement officer of a type. I was a military police officer.
Thank you.
I am also one of those ACAB lefties. And to be clear, when I say it, it's not I'm saying like every individual person who ever was a law enforcement officer is a terrible person. It's about the system. A system of law enforcement we have that it contributes to a lot of systemic inequalities and whatnot. So I'm curious as to what kind of things or policies you might want to push forward that would kind of more specifically address that divide and lead to more community oriented policing and lead to a more equitable distribution of justice in our country.
So I think you hit the nail on the head when you said community-oriented policing. There needs to be community oversight boards. There needs to be community accountability boards. And that's not only with state politics, but it also should be with city and county politics. One thing that a lot of folks don't understand, and I'm sure on this call we have that understanding, but folks just look at cops as cops. But there's levels to certain types of law enforcement agencies that travel across the state. You have the Highway Patrol, which is with the state. Here in South Dakota, we have the Division of Criminal Investigation, which is also with the state. So both are considered state law enforcement officers, but one is ruled by the governor's office, the other is ruled by the attorney general's office. So we have to make sure there's two levels of state accountability when it comes to that. Then you break down to what the county structure looks like. Every sheriff has the ability to rule their county differently. So we have to have an oversight committee of those county officers as well. Then you go to the city police departments, and every mayor has the opportunity to rule how the city, the chief of police in whatever city rules or governs their organization. And so there has to be different structures. Now, tying back to what you said with community-oriented policing, there used to be something called the COPS program. This was under the Obama administration. There was the COPS program. There was the COPS grant that really used to give federal dollars to law enforcement agencies who had a focus on building bridges in communities with accountability. And every agency in the state of South Dakota participated in that because they wanted those federal dollars. It was good. It was a great thing, right? But now under the Trump administration, actually after the first Trump administration, that COPS program went away. And so we don't have those federal dollars with accountability attached to it, which means we don't have a citizen oversight committee attached to that as well. I think we have to get back to what that was so that we can build up on things like that.
All right. I appreciate the answer. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Like I agree with the focus really needs to be on the accountability. It's to prevent all sorts of atrocities happening. I also apologize. I'm splitting my attention because something is going on in the Sons of Liberty Discord that I'm also tracking on. So I'm a little bit scatterbrained. But
no.
More law enforcement.
Let me maybe add something just real quick to that, because I think accountability is just one piece. There also needs to be a method of responsibility for the agencies overall. And the responsibility of that agency is going to be back to the public. I was a big proponent of making sure that the public knew when an officer made a mistake that was vital to its job of public safety. And when that happened, I was also a big proponent of making sure that the agency had the responsibility of utilizing that particular instance to train the department not to do it. So, for example, when the murder of George Floyd happened,
Right.
We all know, we all saw it. We saw it with our own two eyes. And even within the agency that I worked for, there were folks like, oh my God, I can't believe he did that. We're not taught to do that. I think there needs to be a level of responsibility for the agency to go above and beyond that, to say, not only are we not taught to do that, we're going to have some training based on what we saw to ensure that our agency doesn't fall into that same boat, because we are here to protect and serve the public. And if we are not holding ourselves not just accountable, but responsible to the people, then we're not doing our job.
Yeah. And speaking of accountability and responsibility in law enforcement, I think we all see what's happening at a national level currently. How can let's talk about that. Let's just go into general things. Tell me what you think we can do to, for lack of a better word, fix this.
Well, I think instead of being general, I'd like to be a little bit more specific. I imagine you're talking about ICE and immigration, Border Patrol. Yep. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's probably what you're referring to, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. So to be very specific, I hesitate to call those individuals, at least most of those individuals, law enforcement officers. Number one, exactly.
Yeah. They're not attached to the Department of Justice.
They're absolutely not. They're absolutely not. Their job is to protect the border. That's what they're there for. They're there for immigration and customs control. They're there for border control. They're not there to protect the community. So they are not law enforcement officers. In addition to that, though, let's just point out the amount of training or lack thereof of the agents that are coming into our streets with guns in front of civilians. They only have to spend 47 days in training. And that number particularly is important because Trump picked it. That was because he's the 47th president. That's the only reason why.
If they're even getting that.
There's nothing else to it other than the symbolization of that number. And I don't trust anyone who has been through training for 47 days when I had to go through 10 months of training myself to stand beside me and call themselves a law enforcement officer to protect the community.
Yes. And there's no accountability whatsoever, clearly. That's what they're working on right now, because everybody sees what's happening and is demanding accountability. So that's what we have to keep on doing.
Yes, absolutely. So to answer the question, what should we do? I'm always going to consider myself a progressive, but in this case, I think we need to regress. I think we need to come back to the drawing board. I do think that ICE and Border Patrol play a very important role in protecting our country and our country's borders. And I do think that it's a requirement to have both of those agencies present. However, they should not be present in the streets of Minnesota. They should not be present in the streets of Chicago. They should be on the border where they are hired to really do their job and do that job very well. With that said, when I talk about coming back to the drawing board, I'm talking about getting rid of Kristi Noem. I'm talking about getting rid of, all of the folks who have been just recently promoted, who have never served in a supervisory role over people a day in their lives. I'm talking about sending those individuals that we hired back to not just back to training, but back through the entire process of being rehired to make sure that they are capable and mentally and physically capable to do the job, so that, again, we're doing the job well and we're protecting the people in this country.
That brings up that I'm sure you're very familiar with Kristi Noem, having been the governor there. And I, in particular, she was already on my list because she was trying to kill my elderly relatives during COVID. So yeah, speak to Kristi Noem needs to be impeached is what you would.
Yeah, absolutely. She didn't deserve to be in that position in the first place. Kristi and I have a little bit more of a personal relationship, to where I think it's fair to say I'm not a fan of who she is and what
I
she's
was wondering about that.
Yeah.
If there was anything personal there too.
I am certainly not a fan. If you will indulge me for just a moment.
Of course.
After the murder of George Floyd, I organized one of the largest marches in the state's history to, again, make sure that we as community members, and I was still a trooper by the way, that we as community members were holding police accountable in Minnesota, and also making sure that the police here, those who wore the uniform here, knew that we deserved better, we expected better. We had about 9,000, a little bit over 9,000 folks show up to the George Floyd March here in Sioux Falls. After that, several weeks, I don't even know how long it was after that, but she was running for re-election. And she was running against Jamie Smith, who was a well-known Democrat here in the state as well. And she sent out an ad to 32,000 houses, like a flyer, a campaign flyer, 32,000 hires across the state. And she classified Jamie Smith as Black Lives Matter. And on that flyer, she had him standing directly next to me. And so things got personal during that moment, because as a law enforcement officer, the thing that you depend on is your backup. You depend on other officers to show up, and it classified me as the enemy to those that I worked with. Yeah. I started receiving death threats. I started not getting folks respond to my call for requests for backup. Heading to gun calls, I started not have. As a matter of fact, I was headed to a gun call on the interstate, and I had 3 guys that went to lunch instead of coming to support me. And these are the things that the public doesn't see, but it's also the type of irresponsibility of someone who was in the position of governor, who is now promoted to the position of Secretary of Homeland Security, who never deserved the job in the first place. And she's showing how irresponsible she is and how irresponsible she can be, because now lives are being lost, right? My life was in danger, but I was good enough at my job to get out of those situations. These other individuals are not trained. These are citizens that she's putting in danger now. And this is something that is just, not only is it unsatisfactory, it's something that we just cannot stand for in our country. And so she has to be removed, because she has no clue what she's doing.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100% agreed. It's no notes.
Yeah, no notes about that.
So what is an issue that you would like to see specifically improve, pass legislation on, introduce legislation on that would improve the lives of people in South Dakota?
The first thing I think we need to really look at is the Department of Education legislation that has actually been introduced by Mike Rounds. He is the author of the Senate bill to dismantle the Department of Education. And things that we've seen in states like Maryland and Illinois is that they have very intentionally produced state legislation to increase the resource funding in their Department of Education. And it's done 2 things. It has increased the amount or the percentage of high school graduation rates in their states, and it has also decreased the crime rate in both of those states. In the case of Maryland, particularly in Baltimore, they have seen the fastest decrease of crime rates in any state in this country. We're talking about Baltimore, what Republicans used to love to say was one of the most dangerous cities in the country, is now one of the safest cities in the country, because they simply understood the assignment and invested in our children. And so that's what we have to do. We have to look at the things that is working across our country and not dismantle the Department of Education, but reinvest in our kids, especially in a state like South Dakota, where at the end of the year, we struggle to just pay the bill to feed our kids. And so Mike Rounds' bill proposes that we send all of the responsibility back to the states. We don't have the resources amongst our counties to take on that additional responsibility. That's the reason why the Department of Education was created in the first place, is to be a a helpful hand to the State Department of Education when it comes to things like after school programming and gifted programming and special education needs. We are not going to be able to service our kids properly if that responsibility falls back on, again, a state that can't even take care of the responsibilities that it has right now.
Tim, talk. You sound like you want to talk.
Yeah,
Y'all have all the great questions. I'm over here like, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite dinosaur?
I like to ask questions. I try to ask questions that relate to the guest's personal interests.
So, can I answer that question? Can I answer what my favorite color is? All right. So this is actually a good topic for me because I get this question often. I wear a red tie sometimes, or actually I wear a red tie a lot. And red is my favorite color, and I do so very intently. Number one, because it's my favorite, and nobody's going to take the color red away from me. But number two, Republicans can't have a stronghold on anything, whether it's the color red, the word freedom, the word democracy,
the flag.
Yeah, the flag. We're all Americans. You can't control anything around here. And so I wear that just to tick them off sometimes.
I think that's a valid reason to do it. And
I appreciate that.
What wasn't and Louisiana Techs were purple and red, right?
Blue and red.
Blue and
yep.
red.
Red, white, and blue.
I went to Clemson. We played them a few times. I've been seen some Louisiana Tech games.
Listen, go dogs. Go dogs.
You're the only one in South Dakota, probably.
I guess I can ask this.
But what is your favorite dinosaur, though?
Oh, that's a good question.
The dinosaur. Yeah.
Favorite dinosaur? Oh man.
You can take a little time to think about it if you need
to. Well, no,
I always like to tell people, so I'm gonna go with
that. I'll say my favorite dinosaur is the T-Rex, and it's simply because T-Rex have been found in South Dakota, and so that's the state dinosaur.
That's true.
That's a good thing.
Yes,
that's true. There's a big thing about that.
So,
okay.
So let's talk about Indigenous issues in the state of South Dakota. I know specifically that South Dakota has a large population of Indigenous people, and how I think Kristi Noem was banned from going on Indigenous reservations. Personally, love that for her.
We all do.
As what is something that you can do to provide support for your citizens who are living on tribal lands and things?
Yeah, so not only was she banned from all 9 tribal communities in South Dakota, she has now begun to be banned a second time from those tribes because of some of the issues that have happened over in Minneapolis. If folks are not aware, we had some Indigenous folks, Indigenous community members that went over to support people in Minneapolis that were then detained as if they were immigrants themselves. And so tribes have now begun to ban Kristi Noem and ICE and the Department of Homeland Security from tribal communities here yet again. So that just, again, plays into how irresponsible of a person and she is. There's one of those things where I will refuse to call her a leader because that's not what she's showing. She's not a leader whatsoever. So the things that I would do about our Indigenous community, number one, I think we have to listen to them very closely and intently. They have told me over and over and over again that they feel forgotten. And I've been given this type of advice a few times from tribal leaders in the state, is that we as elected officials or public servants have to remember to move at the speed of trust, and particularly with tribal communities. And if I'm going in there and I'm talking about the things that I'm for all the time, and I'm not listening to what the needs are of the tribal communities, then I'm losing trust immediately. And so what we've done is we've actually, although we need their votes, and I promise you as a candidate running for office, I wish I can just go onto tribal lands and start talking to people and start engaging with people and start earning their trust very quickly. but that's not the way it works because their trusts have been broken, not just by folks like Kristi Noem, but by our government for years. We have so many treaties that have been broken across the Sioux Nation, and those things need to be upheld. So to very directly answer your question, number one, I think we have to listen. And then number two, I think we have to revisit our treaties that have been broken by the United States government to tribal communities to say, how can we now put forth an additional effort to either reban the treaty that has been broken or to create new promises between the U.S. government and Indigenous folks.
I think that's really important, actually, because in the way that they feel forgotten, I think that gets glossed over. That maybe people don't realize that they do remember that stuff.
Yeah,
very much.
So
that the treaties were broken.
When you talk about repairing these treaties, right? Is this somewhat tied into like land back movements as well, or?
So yes and no. I understand in Minnesota right now there is a push to grab land back, and there's a promise from state government to actually give some of that land back. That's state controlled, but there's not a promise from federal government to do so. From my understanding, in order to have that land back control, you need to have multiple states really push the federal government with the cooperation of the tribes in those states. And we just have not been able to do that yet. And so I think it's a good idea, just based on your question, and this is me now thinking in real time, I think it would be a good idea to just form a coalition of congressional members, whether you're in the House or the Senate, to say, listen, we need to get together with our tribal communities, and we need to have this coalition push to give land back, not just in the state of South Dakota, but this needs to be a nationwide movement. It's no different than me talking about how Black folks need to have their 40 acres and a mule. You know what I mean? Like it's the promise right. that America has given us that they have broken over and over again. And it is something that we deserve to have back.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, treaties are treaties. They need
I think it's important to at least have discussions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do think it's important to have discussions. I also think that this country is probably past just folks having discussions. We love to do this. We love to talk about it. We love to form a subcommittee on it, and then we love to vote it down. Right.
Things don't happen.
So I think we need to be actionable right off the bat. I don't have time for subcommittees. I think we have talking until we're blue in the face, and folks understand it. And we have the tools at our fingertips not to be ignorant on some of these items. We know exactly what the impact has been to folks on reservation land, and if folks don't, it's just because they are willfully being ignorant because they're not looking up the history.
Isn't Pine Ridge in your state?
Yes, Pine Ridge is on the southwestern part of the state, which they are actually the poorest community in the entire country right now, and so we also have to
that's what I was going to ask you the question.
Yeah, we have to figure out how to get them more access to resources. One of the things that I have found to be very true is that there are certain resources in certain places of Pine Ridge, but travel and accessibility has been an issue for them. And anytime they have a good candidate who is standing up to support them, whether it be with state legislation or even local legislation, there's a couple of different issues. South Dakota is a state to where it requires you to have an ID when you go to the polls. And in order to have that ID, or that real ID is kind of what they call it now. This is aside from the SAVE Act. This is a separate conversation than what the SAVE Act is. In order to have that real ID with the star in the middle of your driver's license photo, you have to be able to have accessibility to the DMV or the Secretary of State's office. And in some cases, you also have to have a physical address. Well, on reservations, most of those individuals don't have physical addresses. They have box numbers, or they live in a housing community where they don't have actual street names. They have the community housing name, and then they live in house number 1 or house number 2. And so they just don't have the physical address to meet the requirements to get those IDs. And in addition to that, on Pine Ridge, very specifically, some of those folks have to drive an hour and a half to 2 hours just to get to a DMV location, or just to get to their polling place, or just to go check their mail at their PO box.
Yep.
That's not real accessibility. So anytime you talk about resources, I think you also have to mention access to those resources that have been developed. And Pine Ridge is in a situation where they have neither. So we have to fix that problem.
They have trouble with their tribal IDs. I think that's an issue. Seems like not just at Pine Ridge.
Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I know that I crochet a lot and I've knitted a lot, and like one of the things we do as a knitting community is we send a lot of things to Pine Ridge, and it's just it's something I think about a lot, basically. And this is OJ, by the way.
Hi, OJ.
Mikey left. Mikey was here, but he left.
Oh, Max.
He's
Max
very
made a small guest appearance too. He decided to lay down on the other side of the room.
So wait, do you all have cats, or was there a dog present?
My dog, my ex was
Your dog.
present for a
My
little
dog
bit
keeps making
there.
noise, so I had to mute him.
Well, I have a sheepadoodle named Beignet.
Beignet.
okay.
Oh my gosh,
Yes,
that's
because
a great name.
Oh, yeah.
His hair looks like powdered sugar, so we call him Beignet.
Uh-huh.
No, I have my shepherd husky.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. He left the room. I was gonna come and make him say hi.
I'm a cat person. I've always been a cat person. So yeah, I have a cat most of the time.
My cat's usually walking around behind me, but I don't know where he went. He's not around right now.
Well, I'm a dog person, but for anyone listening, you probably know that Kristi Noem is not a dog person.
Well, neither
worst.
is the current occupant. I don't like to use his name. I call him all kinds of things, everything but a child god, as they say.
There you go.
My favorite is the shrieking shit stain. That's what I came up with after a couple of weeks ago. So
what I say about him is that, there's something nice about everybody. You can think of something nice about everybody, but even Hitler liked dogs.
yeah,
geez.
yeah.
He doesn't even seem to have that.
Yeah.
Hey,
Well,
I there's one thing I can say nice about him. He's
Oh.
mortal, and he won't be our problem one day.
Wow.
But what does that do right
Yeah.
I-
Well,
I look towards the future.
here's
We
what
have
I
a
want
Yeah,
to
audience
stiff a bunch.
question that I want to get to
Yes.
Go ahead,
once we're
Julian.
all done talking about our pets.
We had to go there.
We have an audience question from Emma, or
Hmm.
Emma Jast. Not sure if that's like a whole name or what. So, and this question might involve some politicking. So, how do you feel about the current DNC?
Oh, listen, it will not require politicking. First off, I know I am technically a politician because I'm running for a political office. But that's not what I've done in the past. I'm a straight shooter, especially as a state trooper. And so I will tell you, I am not a fan of the direction in which our current DNC is heading. And I say that by also saying that I am, acquaintances or friends, however you want to put it, with the current chair of the DNC, and Ken Martin. I love the fact that the DNC has invested so much money in rural states. However, the direction in which I don't like, hi there, buddy. The direction in which I don't like to see the DNC going is the lack of resources they are investing in rural candidates. And I would love to see them invest more in people versus structures or versus organizations, because people are the ones that make things move. And if they can invest so much money in a state like, I want to say it was Montana, where they invested tens of millions of dollars here this previous cycle and lost by a landslide, they can certainly invest in a state like South Dakota, where we don't need tens of millions of dollars to make an impact. I project, if we can raise $3.5 to $4 million in this race, that we will not only have a chance to flip the seat, that we will win the seat. and I will become the next U.S. Senator in South Dakota. And so we have to see that investment early. One of the things that I did to show them better than I can tell them is that I announced in April of last year, I'm showing them that I am more than a serious candidate for this, for this particular seat, and that the community more than supports me for the seat. I am the first Black candidate to run a federal race in the entire state's history. And that says a lot, because no one else is, I won't say no one else has had the courage to do it, but no one else has had the support across the state or across the nation to be able to step into a role like this. And so I did it by saying, I know we might not have the support right now, but we are going to show you better than we can tell you. And you're going to be forced to support candidates like me, not just in South Dakota, but across this entire country.
In South Carolina and other places too, where we have
Absolutely.
We have a reasonable Democratic base in the state of South Carolina. I think it's possible to flip it, but they don't invest in us. So.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what it is. They do not invest. Let's maybe just take that a step further and look at Louisiana. So I pay attention to Louisiana politics, of course, being from Louisiana, and we had a really good candidate. I say we. I use that loosely now because I am a South Dakotan, but there was a really good candidate down there last cycle who was making national headlines on CNN and on all of the large talk shows, and the DNC still refused to invest dollars in them. And that person came within 7 percentage points of winning. Just imagine if they would have invested money into that campaign, you would have had a seat flip where Mike Johnson is. So we have to look at this from a broader perspective, and not just the same old states playing the same old roles over and over and over again. There are people across this country that can make a difference.
And a lot of it has to do with gerrymandering and voter suppression across the board. I am a big fan of the Voting Rights Act because, quite frankly, it changed the South. It allowed more people to vote, and it allowed, and it continues to fight things like corruption in the state of South Carolina, and I assume in other parts of the state as well. But we need a new Voting Rights Act that addresses gerrymandering. And with the technology changing, we are to the point where the voters don't choose their politicians, the politicians choose their voters. You can narrow it down to a house so that you can know which party is going to win the seat. And that can't be allowed. It's terrible. We want competitive races so that the politicians are not accountable to the party. They're accountable to the people. And right now, politicians are accountable to their parties. Yeah. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I do think that's important.
How do you feel about a little more national voter things? Like the SAVE Act is stupid because it addresses a problem that does not exist. People are not voting who aren't immigrants.
But that's not the intention behind the SAVE Act. the intention behind the SAVE Act is to begin the process of dismantling the voting rights of citizens across our country. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm a really big fan of the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. One of the things that a lot of folks don't understand with civil rights and voting rights is that there is actually a sunset clause to the Voting Rights Act of what was it, 1964, I want to say, Voting Rights Act of 64. There's a sunset clause to where every 65, to where every 20 years or so, Congress has to revisit that to re-up our right to vote, whether you be Black or a woman or anything in between, right? If you're not a white man with property ownership, your voting rights has to be re-amended or re-looked at every 20 to 25 years. Folks are ignorant to that because, of course, our government doesn't want you to know. However, it's coming to the table now with things like the SAVE Act because the intent for them is to not revisit this Voting Rights Act. It is to dismantle the Voting Rights Act in addition to revising the amount of people who are eligible to even vote under the 65 Voting Rights Act. So we are seeing a decrease in eligible voters already. just because folks are fed up with the system and people are not registering at the same rate. And when they are registering, they're registering as either independent or non-affiliate. And those folks also feel like they don't have a home right now. And so in this campaign, one thing that we have to really do is we have to focus in on the forgotten voice, the forgotten people. And we also need to make sure that when we focus on them, they have the right to vote and utilize their voice, because the most powerful thing you can do in this country is vote.
In the state of South Carolina, 8% of the voters decide 90% of the seats in our state, because that's who votes in the primaries. And maybe we need to overhaul the primary system too. I don't know. I got something for that, but it is crazy work. We are at almost Soviet level Russia things here in the American South. So I am always interested in hearing new ideas around this. So thank you for your talking about it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think we have a great opportunity right now, in the sense that maybe that's one of the positives, like what Jamie's sort of getting at, which is like things are going to get better, that this might be a good time to say people are angry about gerrymandering by Democrats and Republicans. So maybe this is a time where we can capitalize on that and say, this is when you should have the push for every state should have bipartisan or nonpartisan election, district boards, so that this can continue to be an issue. Because now it's just now it's tit for tat, and I'm in Texas. That means I'm losing my representative and I'm getting a new one. And there are 11 Republicans and 4 Democrats running for it, which is chaos and is obviously going to result in a runoff.
Yep, for sure. One of the things you mentioned that I also have a problem with is that now it is tit for tat. But that's also the reason why I don't believe anything will formidably happen to change the process right now, is because both the overarching powers to be of Republicans and Democrats have used this tool to their benefit. And we as Democrats, I'm saying we because I'm a registered Democrat, but we as Democrats really harp on the negativity of gerrymandering when Republicans do it, and then we'll turn around and we'll use it to our own benefit as well. And so yes, I don't like that process. I don't like it at all, because I understand what it does, particularly to communities of color who don't have stable leadership, and have never had stable leadership in this country. But it is one of those things where I don't foresee changing, because both parties have utilized it to their own benefit.
There would have to be a big call for it.
There would have to be a huge call.
I mean, realistically, I don't think gerrymandering is going to be much of I don't think gerrymandering is going to go away as a thing until we introduce some reforms that get rid of the winner take all, first past the post voting system that we have right now. So it's going to be, it's going to be I agree. Like, it's going to be a very long process for sure.
And I realize we have bigger fish to fry right now, but that one's always in the back of my mind, because it determines how we get here.
Yeah,
for sure. And that's why if people are, when they're paying attention, which thing are they paying most attention to, and how are the next couple of elections going to go, and what are people going to be happy or mad, or how is that going to go, and what are they going to blame it on when it goes bad, because it's going to, one way or another, it's going to. So do they blame it on the electoral college? People keep blaming it on that, but people don't understand what that is. Or the gerrymandering, when you look at these crazy maps, and that's a real easy look at this moment. So
I mean,
it's like, what can you do now? Because right now we're in an existential crisis right now. We have to tit for tat, or else we're screwed. So
and I'm going to bring it back to South Carolina, because that's what I know. I use South Carolina as an example because I'm very familiar with it. And it's like this in other things. In South Carolina, the electorate can go up to 46% towards the Democrat in a presidential campaign. Based on that, we have 7 House seats. if you assume that 46% of the population is voting for Democrat and you have 7 House seats, you would assume that 3 of those House seats, maybe 4, would go to Democrats. Right now we have 1. It is Jim Clyburn, and it is because it's cracked and packed. Like, they took out a big chunk of Columbia, which is where I live, and put it, this is a crack of the situation. I'm in a very Democratic area of South Carolina. Like 80% of our people vote for Democrat in my area, right? And the cracking and packing means that they have paired me with Lexington County and Aiken County, which almost always go red, so that they can make sure that they put enough people in that so that Joe Wilson maintains a seat. And I personally find it very problematic, and that is why I'm passionate about it, is because I see the results in my own state. I feel disenfranchised as a voter because of that. And there's I live in an area where we have a lot of people of color, mostly Black people, but I live near Fort Jackson, so we've got a real big international population as well. And we are represented by Joe Wilson, because they've made sure to do so.
Can I just thank you real quick for what you said? One of the things that I appreciate about that is that you recognize the difference between just people of color, Black folks, and immigrants. And because the needs of those communities, particularly political needs, are vastly different. And anytime we try to group those communities together as just people of color, we don't accurately represent them, because we don't really accurately understand their needs. And so no other comment other than just to show you appreciation for recognizing that.
It's something I think about a lot, because of where I live. It's just, I'm forced to think about it because of my location. And so it matters to me.
Yeah.
Jamie?
Hold on, I'm thinking. Somebody just sent me something at this point.
I can see that.
Sorry, I wanted to say a slight caveat off of something you said earlier about the DNC not properly putting money where it should. I'm eternally always very frustrated at that kind of thing, because that made me vote for John Fetterman, and I will never forgive the DNC for that. And I never want to vote for John Fetterman again. And I also don't want to vote for Dave McCormick. That's all I have to say about that. I'm really angry about John Fetterman. I'm just always angry about John Fetterman.
We all are, but you have
I'm
personal
angry
connection
at
to we're all pretty disappointed, really.
But I was excited. I voted for that guy. I was excited to cast that vote.
Remind me, was it Malcolm that ran against Fetterman?
It was Dr. Oz, if I recall correctly. That ran against
Wasn't
Fetterman.
it?
I'm pretty sure it was.
No,
Dr.
I mean
Oz.
in a Democratic
in
primary.
the Democratic primary.
Yeah.
So I don't actually know off the top of my head, because I'm not a registered Democrat, so I don't vote in primaries in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
You don't usually.
I'm not allowed to vote in primaries because I'm not registered with a party affiliation, which I will be changing ahead of elections this year, because I've never voted Republican a day in my life anyway. So,
Well, you haven't lived where I've lived, which is in Wyoming, and in Ohio isn't a problem, and in New Jersey wasn't a problem, but in Texas and in Wyoming, you make strategic decisions. And if they close the primaries, I'm definitely voting on a Republican ballot here, because I was a registered Republican since years ago. And when I investigated how to change it, it didn't really matter, because when you have an open primary, it doesn't really matter. But what it means is this: I get texts from both sides, and that can be fun.
My
favorite thing to do is curse them out on text. I'll just be like,
well, if you tell them F off, they've apparently programmed it so it takes you off.
I never get political texts. I'm very happy I never get political texts. I did get a call from a PAC one time about it was years ago, about why I should vote for Trump so that like the VA will be better funded, and I'm like, you're full of shit.
You told him that in the text?
No, it was a phone call.
That was a phone
that I answered because this is when I was young.
The phone is dangerous like that.
I didn't screen my calls then.
Right. When you're young and you don't. Yeah.
Well. Listen, it's amazing that y'all even have contact from Republicans in your states, because in South Dakota, we don't have contact with folks here because they feel like they're so complacent right now that they don't have to communicate.
They're safe.
Yeah, I mean, there hasn't, outside of like these phone town halls, there haven't been any in-person meetings. There hadn't been roundtable discussions with the average voter. They just don't care anymore. They really don't.
They've been doing it a little bit in Wyoming. They pretend, but the one that does them is Harriet Hageman, and she gets abused. So she's cut down on them. She does surprise ones.
Sure.
So I live in central PA, so it's very red where I am. But we do sometimes get like around presidential elections, we get like Republicans kind of reaching out or something like that because I live close enough to Philly, kind of thing. But like my representative is Lloyd Smucker. That man has never held a town hall a day in his fucking life.
I remember you mentioning that in chat, and I was like,
yeah,
that sounds like a cartoon character.
I hate Lloyd Smucker so much.
Lloyd.
I despise him. I mean, I went to his office earlier today, right? Like,
how'd it go?
Well, I didn't get to talk to him. And I pretty much had a staffer blow me off by saying Trump didn't need to be impeached, and I was.
Oh no!
I had to leave before I blew a gasket, but like so I mean, it's we don't get a lot of outreach from either side here because our local Democratic Party is spineless. Like they don't support candidates that they put up. We had a really promising candidate a couple cycles ago that I think she could have taken out Smucker. And you know, she canvassed like our door personally. Her name is Jess King. And the Democratic Party just did not back her properly. She didn't go anywhere because she didn't have the backing. It was infuriating.
Yeah.
How's the state Democratic Party?
Our state party is amazing. Our state party is amazing. We have, matter of fact, we have an amazing executive director. He, I love it, but I don't love it at the same time because he potentially could be leaving the role as executive director. But he announced that he's running for governor.
Okay.
Yeah, so you know, that's certainly going to be a race to look for. Congressman Dusty Johnson is our lone representative in South Dakota, and he is also running for governor. So I anticipate.
That's right.
Yep, I anticipate there being a battle on the Republican
Dusty
side.
Johnson. Looks like he's 12.
Well, he does, doesn't he?
He is 50 years old. It isn't even. I couldn't believe it.
I want to know what I want to know what he's
like
eating so I can get some of it.
Clean living and probably good skincare.
Right. But on the Republican side, you know, I think you have 4 or 5 candidates who are not fighting for people. They're fighting to be on the side of Trump. Like every single one of them right now is so vocal about who's more Trump-like than the other.
That's exactly what's going on here. They're all to the point where one of them has given himself the name MAGA, whatever his name is. Like at the beginning, he's like, they're all just competing. And the other thing they're doing is they're calling themselves conservative. They're not calling themselves Republican.
Fucking spineless ass audience.
It's a contest to see who is, and even Cornyn, who you know does not like Trump, is going on and on and on and on about how close he is with Trump, and it's the worst.
Lindsay
I could
does
go
the
on
same
and on
thing,
about
so does
Texas.
Tim.
It's terrible.
It's mind-boggling to me that one of the very few people that have figured out that distancing themselves from Trump is a good idea is Marjorie Taylor Greene, of all fucking people. That moron could figure it out.
Also
The rest
Rand
of those
Paul,
Republicans can't. Well, Rand Paul at least has some ideological consistency. He's an idiot, but he's at least a consistent idiot.
He has his own agenda, but
Yeah.
Sorry,
Independent,
Julian,
sort
you're,
of.
you're getting the admin talk, and this is what happens in our chat all day.
Yeah.
And
It
that's
took a
okay.
little over an hour, but we got
That's okay.
here.
This is the
Yeah.
real deal right now.
Right.
Kind
Oh,
of
space lasers.
to that point, though, I will say, like, our state legislature has started to figure it out. I mean, there's fractures within the Republican Party, and I think that's all over the country. But we have started to see where some of the more moderate conservatives or moderate Republicans are starting to caucus with Democrats here in South Dakota. And so the legislation that both Democrats and those moderate Republicans are putting forth are getting passed left and right this year. It's been amazing to see. And, you know, these are folks that are probably never going to switch to the Democratic Party just because we have a different set of beliefs politically. But they see the value in humanizing every policy that they put out when the rest of the Republican Party in the state is not seeing that. And I would imagine there's many other state legislatures, if not every state legislature, that has the same type of effort that's being put up right now.
They want to get things done.
Absolutely.
That's the good news.
Yeah,
But also ideologically, they're not that far apart in a state
They're
like
not.
South Dakota. They're
They're
just
not.
not. In Wyoming, let me just say that's my home state where I really grew up, even though all my relatives are in South Dakota. They have stepped it up a notch, and they have a freedom caucus that is currently rampaging and trying to wreck the entire state. So be thankful you don't have that.
Oh,
because
we do.
it's not
We
fun.
actually do. We have a Freedom Caucus as well.
Do you have a freedom? Are they doing things like trying to hack $40 million from the state's only four-year university?
Oh, no. But they are certainly trying to take control of the curriculum for the universities.
The education is a real problem because that is such a state mandated thing.
Yep.
They're really trying. In Wyoming, they basically were making it so that people all you had to have was like a high school diploma and you could teach school.
Oh, jeez.
That is
Rough.
crazy.
Tough break, right?
My parents
bad.
both had 30 years over their masters by the time they they retired.
Mm.
That is crazy talk. You
It
can
is. It's
I don't mind homeschooling. I think it can work well for some people. I'm not arguing that point, but not everybody can teach, man. Like
No.
it's a
Right.
And the curriculum
specialized
thing is
set of
an issue
skills.
too. They've had some crazy stuff, like when Noem was in charge and they put that the Hillsdale thing in South Dakota. Like you look at it and go, no, you can't do. It's
Yeah.
bad.
Listen, to the point of not everybody can teach. Nobody has seen frustration until they've sat with me and my daughter trying to teach her math, and I'm not understanding it because she's not understing it.
You
And
didn't
we're
inherit that.
We're
Can't learn it
both
by
frustrated, and
osmosis.
then it's like this all night long.
Right.
Yeah, I had to be good at math because my dad was the math teacher, and
Mhm.
like he had way more patience for other children than he did for me.
Yep.
So I had to be good. So that wasn't an option for me.
I hear you.
You got something, Sarge?
All this talk about mathematics, and I'm over here like writing up my Black History Month post for tomorrow about Katherine Johnson, the
Oh, she's amazing.
world famous, the mathematician.
Oh
who
yeah, of course.
basically
Didn't you say you were afraid
people on.
of V's dad? Come to think, talking about V's dad.
Yeah, but I say that all the time, so like it's nothing new.
So Tim and I went to high school together, Julian. So
Oh,
my
nice.
dad taught him math too.
I wouldn't say he taught me math. I would say he threw math at me, and I just was sitting there
Tried to
like,
teach you. He smacked you around with math.
Yep.
he threw the math at me, and I just let it bounce off me like.
Some kind of perverse math assault.
Yeah.
So when I
Truer
would go on
words
road
have
trips
never
in the
been
car,
spoken.
and my dad would give me logic puzzles to do. This was obviously pre like phones and everything like that. But so the entertainment on my long road trips were logic puzzles. Because he gave me extra homework, y'all. Like other people, he wanted to assess me himself. So he would give me extra homework so he could know where I was mathematically.
Mm.
It was
So
very
that you would be a good role model for his
Yeah.
teaching.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I can understand that.
the let's see, let's get back to South Dakota. Do you have any final statements that you wanna talk about?
Well, I think it would be number one. My campaign manager would hate it if I didn't say this, and then it would also be pretty irresponsible of me as a candidate if I didn't mention it. Any support that folks can give across the country will be absolutely amazing. And it only takes, $3.5 million or so to win this race, which it sounds like a lot of money, but if you put it in contrast, folks in Texas are raising $3 million in a whole month, right? We need this for the entire cycle to be able to flip this seat. And so every single dollar counts. Whatever you can give, I'm not asking for a certain amount, but I don't care if it's $1, $5, whatever you can give, certainly counts. So we appreciate that, but even more than that, we appreciate the support of just paying attention to the journey and giving us your feedback. I've talked a lot about accountability for other folks, but one of the things that I am sharp enough to remember, hopefully, is that I also need to be held accountable in this position that I am in. Not only when I'm elected, but as a candidate right now, as I'm going out and talking to people, if I'm talking about the things that don't matter to you most, hold me accountable. If my actions are not representative of what you believe they should be, hold me accountable. If I am not the candidate that you believe I should be, hold me accountable. I'm not in this thing for me. I'm in this thing for you. And so accountability goes both ways. I can talk until I'm blue in the face about the things I will do to hold other folks accountable. But if I'm not on that same page and I don't have people around me telling me when I'm wrong, then I cannot be better for you. So I'll just maybe leave it at that, because I am always going to put people over policy, over politics, and over profit.
Awesome.
Outstanding. I think that's a convenient place to wrap up our live stream. I have to go to a removal coalition thing a little later, so I'm trying to go to the bathroom before get an hour-long call.
Hit the head. Gotcha.
So
I
you
I
will
have to
be
write
notifying all my
tomorrow.
South Dakota relatives to look for you in any upcoming Rapid City area appearances that you might make, and be sure that they're aware that we had you on the stream so that they can watch your comments.
Yes.
That will be great.
Are you the only Democratic Party challenger for this, or do you have to go through like the primary still, or how does
Yeah,
that
I
work?
am. And for the foreseeable future, I will be the only Democratic candidate. I am the presumptive nominee, so to speak. We are still going through our petition passing, which is through the end of March. But now that we are halfway through that and still nobody has jumped in the race, we don't foresee anyone jumping in this race.
Okay, so it's basically it's a done deal, but it's not technically a done deal.
Absolutely.
But it's a done deal.
Yep.
Okay. So we definitely want to have you back on the live stream before you start that final process so that we can kind of follow up and try to help boost the signal on your campaign. So we definitely are going to want you to remind us, reach back out. We'll reach back out to you as well. I don't know how we're going to squeeze everybody in because it's the midterm and all we've been doing is interviewing candidates, but I definitely want to circle back on this particular campaign.
We have all of Iowa involved at this point.
Yeah.
They've been a hot spot for whatever reason.
We've had like every candidate in Iowa that wasn't like MAGA on the live stream. So
I'm not sure what
from
that was.
Iowa.
Well, we enjoyed
though.
talking to you, Julian. This has been delightful. It was wonderful to meet you and to hear about your campaign. I'm going to wish you all the best, and we will donate if we can.
Yes, I appreciate it. And thank you all for your time.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
I think we lost him.
I think we lost him like either that or it's like, thank you all, I'm out. Boom.
That was sudden.
All right.
Yikes.
Well,
Oh Julie.
That's gonna be our live
Everything
stream
went
for
down in
tonight.
Sioux
Thank you
Falls.
everybody for tuning
All right,
in.
then,
Make sure you upvote this video. Follow the channel if you're not already following. And that's
He
gonna be our
needed a
time for
drink.
tonight.
Yes, Emma, he did.
Can you guys hear me or am I?
We
Yeah,
can
I
hear
can
you.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm just
I felt
enjoying.
like I was missing parts of the conversation. Like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, sorry.
All right.
I was also paying my credit card bill there. So.
I was telling my cousin
I'm
in
really
South Dakota
scatterbrained
that she
tonight.
should watch. I forgot because I was busy.
Yeah, and you know me. I always have questions. I make sure to ask as much as I can.
I
think
know
of.
I did a bad job because I had my brother here for the last 5 days and I should have done more research today, but I didn't because I
Yeah.
had to take him to Austin and stuff.
I just like I said.
You guys
I'm a
research
curious
before a live
person,
stream?
so I ask lots of questions.
What?
So you guys research before a live stream?
Sometimes I do to try to come up with like I look at what their talking points are and their major issues. In South Dakota, you know, I mean, I know what's going on in South Dakota, so I guess yeah.
And someone in the live chat asked how old I was because of my pre-phone comment.
I know. I'm
47.
like, we're all Gen X except for Jamie. So
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
what you're talking
I haven't
about.
talked about my age yet this live stream.
I
I'm
said
only
you were youngest
27.
earlier. Champ, kid.
I'm in my late 20s.
His parents are our age.
His. Damn. What the hell? Can't believe you said his. What's up with
Her,
that?
sorry.
God.
Yeah, I am absolutely
I know.
I
It's
did
bad.
not get my first phone until after college.
Oh, Julian came back.
Julie's
Look at him.
I'm back.
He didn't want to do us like that.
That was certainly not the way I wanted to end that.
He didn't want to go out like that. I know. We were like, oh no.
Apologize. So I don't know if you can see, like my background is blurred. I'm actually at a school right now. I'm doing some traveling, and
Okay.
the school was just gracious enough to allow me to use the faculty room.
Uh,
And
Oh,
I
that's
don't know
awesome.
what happened, but I disconnected from their Wi-Fi. I'm on my hotspot now. So
Okay. Well, we figured you
Well,
didn't
we
want to
were-
go out like that, but glad you came back to say goodbye.
not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Properly.
We were just about to wrap things up. So thank you so much for being on the live stream, but also coming back to let us know you didn't just dip out.
Have a good night. Do you have to go talk to some people tonight?
Actually, we were here for a basketball game. My daughter plays high school ball here in South Dakota and at Washington High School in Sioux Falls, and so
Oh, okay.
my wife and I were here for. Yep.
Oh,
nice.
well,
Did they win? Did they win?
No clue. No clue. I'll check when I get out.
Oh, you had to.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and end the thing so you can go figure that one out and give them the congratulations and whatnot, because obviously they won. So
Of course.
There you go.
It was,
Always.
Well, thank y'all so much. Again, I appreciate the time.
thank you
All
for
right,
your
thank
time.
you.
Thank you so much.
Good luck with the race, of course.
that's going to be our time for tonight. 2 claps and a Rick.
Woo!